2 months ago, my grandma, at the end of her life, her journey, with the overwhelming chaos of cancer. Now, she never smoked, but for most of her life, it was well known that she suffered from an autoimmune disease that exhibited depressive and anxiety prone behavior. And I remember those last few months being extremely intense, very confusing times in my life, in her life, in my papa's life, who spent all his time, his energy being of service to her and trying to do the right thing. My boy, my aunt, doing her best to try every treatment, every research, diagnosis, and possibility of a cure, but to no avail. We all suffered. We suffered from trying to make a decision that might end her life unexpectedly. We suffered from trying to console each other at the expense of trying to console her. And we suffered at the fact that we needed to act as a family to give her a peaceful ending. But we could rarely do that. We could rarely agree, but more readily be willing to blame someone for the entire situation. On the other hand, I have been researching with Stanford about cancer and how it not only affects its environment, but is caused by the environment, which is a fascinating phenomenon that we typically don't associate with the formation of cancer, let alone understand it. And what is even more fascinating is when I look back now, there's a mirror image of what was happening with the family and what was happening inside my grandmother's body. And her being at the center of both those things, I couldn't resist diving deeper into the connection, the similarity, the existential metaphor of the body and the world. See, all cells have goals that they orientate towards to survive, to maintain homeostasis, which they do through chemical processes and synchronized bioelectric fields. And the majority of our cells, they work together. They work together collectively to orientate towards an anatomical goal, a goal of the larger anatomy of the body, anatomical, such as forming the liver organ and breaking down fat. It's just like a group of people, a business, a company, striving to sell X amount of burgers. Or you can see it as the employees and the politicians in government who, like the cells in the brain, have to make critical decisions for a much larger population of cells in the body. Now, the brain choosing to, let's say, hold in its pee instead of just peeing is like the government choosing to hold off on printing money instead of just printing money. And, like, both lead to messy situations, but you get the point. Cells orientate towards anatomical goals to maintain higher anatomical functions. People should follow the same. Orientate towards a collective goal to maintain a healthy, connected society. Why and how does one come to the conclusion that a collective goal results in a healthy, connected society, or that it even should? Well, let's take a look at cancer cells. Unlike cells that are connected through a bioelectrical field directed towards an anatomical goal, cancer cells are isolated cells that are not within the bioelectrical collective current to respond to the needs of the body. Now, cancer cells are not selfish. We wouldn't say that. Rather, we would imply that they have a smaller sense of self than the collective cells that have a bigger self, which is the body. Instead of performing tasks that are a part of multicellular function, Isolated cells perform tasks of single cells. And over time, when you have enough single cells that are isolated, the anatomical goal breaks down. And too many cells are overproliferating, and there's therefore chaos and therefore cancer. Now, Professor Michael Levin and his team from Harvard University focus on the mechanisms of bioelectricity in the body. They are an inspiration to what I do, and I hope to work on such feats one day. Now, they have been able to manipulate bioelectrical fields so that the cells do certain tasks, such as making two heads on a worm instead of one head and one tail. And yes, crazy, remarkable. But regarding what we're talking about, with these manipulations, they were able to also depolarize a selected few of cells to separate them from the collective intelligence of the larger group of cells, which gave these selected cells cancer-like behavior, such as overproliferation, cells dividing too fast and too dangerously, overwhelming the body. But what is happening is not what we expect. We expect that the cells that are directly targeted by voltages that differ from the collective bioelectrical field to be the same cells that show metastatic behavior, cancer behavior. But no. Cells that undergo a metastatic behavior are not the cells that are targeted. Rather, they are the neighboring cells that trigger the physiological switch towards a metastatic behavior in the environment. It is the microenvironment that triggers a bioelectrical pattern that induces metastasis. The microenvironment. Now, how does the human body mirror the grander body of the world in terms of cancer and the microenvironments? Well, I would say Nazi Germany is a prime example. Remember, cancer cells, cancer-prone isolated cells, are not necessarily selfish by nature, but they're limited in their awareness and alignment with the greater collective. In the beginning of the 20th century, Vienna was cultured with anti-Semitism. Old and outdated stereotypes were used as prejudices against Jewish identities. They claimed them as a race of people rather than a religious community. These ideas were populated and used as political factors. For instance, Mayor Karl Jaeger was at the forefront of these ideas in Vienna. During the exact same time, Hitler was there trying to make a living off paint, art, selling art. Later on, Hitler states in his book that Jaeger was of major importance to him. We see Hitler as one of those isolated cells, which was enough to provide a cascade of pathways for other cancerous cells, resulting in Nazi Germany and the attempted genocide of the Jewish people. It is the microenvironment which influences the individual, and cancer spreads. The collective goal of function and stability can get corrupted by that which seeks power, by that which seeks proliferation. This is cancer on the global scale of humanity. Enough rebels in the body can completely destroy the body. Enough rebels in a nation can completely destroy a nation. Now, coming back to Levin's research and biological cells in general, cells that do have their goals aligned with the tissue and the collective tissue, they do not individually know what the overall outcome of the state of the tissue is, such as if I flex my muscle, the individual cells have no idea what's going on. They're just performing the tasks that they're influenced by. The single cell intelligence has no idea even what an arm or a hand is, but the collective intelligence of the cell does. Our individual cells and their so-called awareness, we could say, or better yet, the alignment of goals, is expanded into another dimension of life that is unbeknownst to them. They don't know what's going on. And I know I am using the movement of tissues and vocal cords to do this speech, but my individual tissues don't. My individual cells don't. And that is quite a remarkable dimension of events. And just like those cells that are a part of this greater whole, that do not quite understand, but continue to work with their neighbors towards something meaningful, I would like to think there is a factor that is equal to what we humans perceive as trust, where this quote-unquote trust, to think, is a survival mechanism as the most reasonable mode of being to keep the cell alive. And I'd like to think that is the same for us. We have to trust in something greater than ourselves, our family, our community, our collective humanity, the planet, the entirety of the universe, God, even if we can't entirely put our finger on it and define that higher dimension of life. Is it completely out of reason to hypothesize that the bioelectric current of our bodies expands into a greater, more universal electric field where we are all interconnected and all our goals have the ability to align to something worthwhile together? Now, the question remains, how does one come to the conclusion that a collective goal results in a healthy, connected society, or that it should? Well, when we think of someone we love, when we perform an act of altruism and kindness, connecting with another human being, we send electrical signals throughout our brain and our body to produce the well-known famous chemical oxytocin. Now, this chemical allows us to feel, perceive gratitude, love, and trust. It doesn't stop there, though, because when someone produces such chemicals like oxytocin, there are a cascade of signaling pathways in the body that signal other molecules within the cells. In the case of oxytocin, it binds to receptors that trigger many activities, such as to regulate the vascular system and the blood pressure. It creates antioxidants against inflammation, and it protects, regenerates ourselves. The mirroring of the body and the world again. Love and protection in the world is love and protection in the body, and love and protection of the greater good should be the unstated baseline of our individual goals. As cliche as it is, and as much as we know but we forget, only then can we collectively be healthy and connected. Now, the other question that comes up, how can we better align our chemical processes and bioelectrical field away from a cancerous state into a state of resonance and collective functionality? Because this allows us to lower the probability of disease like cancer, autoimmune, and depression. There are many experiments and events around the world today, right now, where groups of thousands of people meditate together, focus together on their nervous system, and elevate their emotions to higher bioelectric frequencies, such that of trust, of love, forgiveness, joy, bliss. And through these events, there is much, much more evidence of a connection between our emotions, or you could say our energy in motion, as an influence as well as a result of our body's electrical field. Retreats such as those by Joe Dispenza, a critically acclaimed author of books like The Placebo Effect and Becoming Supernatural, host retreats that educate people on how we feel dictates body wellness. If we are in a prolonged state of depression, held back by past traumas, that conflict will reflect in the body, many times too many, in the form of cancer. Now, through these meditative processes to produce a more harmonized bioelectrical current, a field, there are many recorded testimonies of people evaporating tumors, being able to walk again after several years of not walking and being in a wheelchair, freeing themselves from depression. And although the research and the studies are not popular on this hypothesis, I would like to take the steps forward to figure out if depression is an underlying cause of cancer rather than just an effect. Because people like my grandma, who suffered from a depressive state of being, never smoked, ended up with lung cancer. I would also take Dispenza's motto further. It is the awareness of how we feel, which dictates how we act, which dictates body wellness. And it is directly by information and presentation, like the scientific reasoning in this talk, like the events where thousands of people come together and align themselves within a spirit of feel, of love, of joy, of wholeness, that we increase our awareness and our action of a greater goal to align with ourselves. Whether we gain our awareness by scientific reasoning, religious and spiritual revelation, or simple acts of kindness around us, we can be influenced, and then we can influence others. To pursue life with trust and responsibility, just like the cells that make up our bodies, we can be the cells that shape the beauty of a planet and beyond. Thank you.